Alright, in this lecture we are going to focus on the structure, or also called orientation, of JSON files. And there are three major orientations: records, columns, and split. And we've already worked with the records orientation in Blockbusters. And let's again have a look. So here we have a list, and each and every element of the list is actually one row or one movie, so one record. And in contrast to that, in Blockbusters 2, we have the columns orientation. And here we are starting with the column title, and then we have the title for the first movie, for the second movie, for the third movie, and so on. Then next we have the ID column. So here we have the data organized in columns from the first column to the last column. And finally we have the split orientation in Blockbusters 3. And here, first of all, we have the column labels. Then next, we have the index labels for all rows. And then we have the data. So we are starting with Avengers, and then the ID and the revenue and so on. So first we have the column labels, then we have the row labels, and then we have the data. And actually, there's no such best orientation, and there are pros and cons. And there's a trade-off between usability with pandas and memory usage. And obviously with the split orientation, we can minimize the memory usage. However, pandas has some problems to work with the split orientation. And in contrast to that, the records orientation is best for loading JSON into pandas. However, it requires more memory, so 5.91 kilobyte. But in our case, with a memory usage between 5 and 6 kilobyte, this can be neglected. And now let's go into our Jupyter notebook, and let's also try to import Blockbusters 2 and Blockbusters 3. And again, we import pandas and JSON. And then we try to open Blockbusters 2 with the columns orientation. And here we have our data set stored column-wise. So first of all, the first column title, then the ID column, the revenue column, and so on. And now we do not have a list, but a dictionary with in total 6 elements. So each and every element stands here for a column. And actually, pandas is pretty clever in recognizing data structures, so we can also pass data to a pd.data frame, and we can create the data frame that we already know. And the same we can also do with pd.read JSON, and we pass the Blockbusters 2. And first of all, let's delete here the orientation parameter. And also here, pandas is pretty clever and can also handle the columns orientation. However, in contrast to the records orientation, we cannot use pd.json normalize on the columns orientation. So this causes here some problems. And therefore, when working with pandas, we should prefer the records orientation, because then we can also flatten the data frame with pd.json normalize. And now let's go to the last alternative, so the split orientation, and we load the Blockbusters 3. And as we have seen before, so first of all, we have the column headers or column labels, then we have the row labels, and then the data. So we have here a dictionary with actually 3 elements. And let's try to pass data to pd.data frame, and let's try to create a pandas data frame. And here we get an error message. And alternatively, we can also try to use pd.read JSON and pass Blockbusters 3. And also here we get an error message, but there's one advantage of pd.read JSON. So there's the additional parameter orient. And let's have a look here. So here we have orient. And here we can actually indicate the expected JSON format. And we can either pass split records, columns, and here in our example, we have to indicate that the orientation is split. And with this pd.readJSON can also handle JSON files in split orientation. However, also in this case, pd.json normalize does not work. And we get here a very nested row or data frame, and this definitely does not work. So to summarize, unless we have memory restrictions, we should always prefer the records orientation when working with JSON and pandas. All right, thanks for watching, and see you also in the next lecture. Bye.